Hello, I'm JP from the Way Biblical Fellowship, and this Torah portion is called Eikev, and what it's really about is what it is to be conformed to the image of the Messiah, what it is to follow Yehovah's Torah and to learn what his heart is, what he'd do in each situation, what it is to walk in his footprints. I hope you enjoy it. Torah portion is Eikev, so it's pronounced. Basically, I want to focus today on what the commandments of God are and how our relationship with Him is supposed to work. So, a bit of background. The name Eikev shares a root with the patriarchal name Yaakov or Jacob. Heel backer, that's what Jacob means. Eikev is also the same word that's used in Genesis 3:15. It says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." Thou shalt bruise his Eikev. And this week's Parsha can be better understood in the context of this messianic prophecy in Genesis. We get the concept from the word Eikev of heel, and we also get footprint from it. We are to walk in the same way that the Messiah did. We're to walk in the Messiah's footprint. And the world talks of footprints. To understand the footprint to be a noticeable effect that something has on its surroundings. The world talks of the carbon footprint, a noticeable effect on the environment and possibly the climate of the earth, by reason of the lifestyle choices someone makes. IT specialists talk about the idea of that each device has a noticeable technological footprint, meaning a specific functional reach or geographical area of impact. In the world of fragrance, each scent has its own olfactory footprint, so we understand what a footprint is. We've got the concept there. Here we're looking at the footprint of the people of God. So what footprint do the people of God leave? How significant an impression does our presence and conversation and input and expenditure of creative energy leave in the hearts and minds of the men, women and children within our sphere of influence? Because we've all got a responsibility. We've got a responsibility to keep all of these things pure and to make them all about the Lord. Are we takers or contributors of that which gives life? He's the source of all life. So if we are to reflect who He is, then we need to give life to the world around us as well. We're not to bring death into people's lives by the things that we speak over them. So are we pleasant fragrances, or are we nasty odours? That's what we need to consider, because each of us has a distinct impact on the world around us. So Moshe will in this week's Parsha be talking a lot about the footprint of a people who love Yehovah with all their hearts and with all their souls and with all their strength, who keep, the Hebrew word Shema means to treasure, to cherish, carefully guard the words of Yehovah upon their hearts, who will teach them faithfully to their children, and who will speak of Yehovah's words when they lie down and when they rise up, when they sit in their houses and when they walk along the way. That's what the Shema says that we should be doing. However, there is always an enemy who wants to strike the footprint of such a people. We will be hated in the world because of these things. Why? Because the footprint cast by such a people, as Moshe describes, is the footprint of a people made in the image of Messiah. This is what we're told. In Romans 8:29 it says, "For whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren." So if we are Messiahs, then we are conformed to his image. It says there, the ones that he foreknew will be conformed to the image of his Son. So if we're not conformed to the image of his Son, we're not the ones he foreknew. So when Yehovah's people passionately and joyfully walk out the details of Torah in the way that the Shema contemplates, our footprint becomes indistinguishable from the footprint of the Messiah. So the enemies of Yehovah, those who hate his Messiah, strike at that footprint, seeking to obliterate it. Yehovah told us it would be this way from the beginning in Genesis 3:15. Every aspect of Torah's submissiveness or observance is not only offensive to, but is very much a threat to all those who have accepted the mindset of the world. And it doesn't matter if those people call themselves Satanists or if they call themselves Christian. If they've accepted the mindset of the world, they will hate the people who submit themselves to Torah, who look like the Messiah. Doesn't matter the labels that we use. I've got a quote here from Morpheus, okay? An important source for truth. He says that the Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. I think that is a brilliant description of institutional Christianity. Okay, most people who are in institutional Christianity are not ready to be unplugged from it. Okay, they see these things as a threat. They see following the instructions as a threat because the edifice of their entire life is built on the fact that the Lord's done away with it. We don't do those things, they're a threat to us. Keep them away. John 15:18-19 says, if the world hate you, you know that it hated me first before it hated you. If you were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Now we've got a clue there. We should be out of the world. Okay, if we are involved in the world, if the world is who we are, then we don't fit this description here. So what Moshe is about to teach us in the opening verses of Parsha Eikev, you see, is the startling truth that Yehovah's purpose in giving us the Torah was not to play a sadistic trick on his bride-to-be that some future prophet, Messiah, would have to come and undo. Because that's the teaching of Christianity, isn't it? Okay, Yehovah took his people out of Egypt and he gave them the commandments and they were bondage to them, but then he sent his son and freed them from that bondage. Okay? Instead, it was to put her on a pathway that she could be totally free from the world's influences, so that she could receive and walk in his amazing love and blessing and have abundant life in his presence. That's what it's really about. Okay, and that's how we should think of seeking God. That's what it's going to achieve. So the first verse says, then it shall come about, because you listen to these judgments and keep and do them, that Yehovah your God will keep with you his covenants and his loving kindnesses, which he swore to your forefathers. So we've got three important words there. Okay? Listen, which is Shema. Keep, which is Shema. And do, which is Asah. Okay? Now, to Shema, or Shema, his commandments, we'll be having a look at a little bit closer. To keep them, okay? What is it to keep them? People think that keeping his commandments is doing his commandments, but that's not what the Hebrew actually says. It's, as I said, to treasure, to guard, to protect, to watch over his commandments, to reverence Yehovah. Okay, this week's Parsha is not a direct cause and effect, but about sequence and relationship. We do not have the three-step program, okay? Shema, Shema, and Asah are not a three-step program. They're not a means to an end, okay? We do not earn material blessings from Yehovah by Torah observance. The blessings are not intended as a reward on earth for being good or for doing good. We need to divorce our minds from this thinking that we can earn the blessing of Yehovah. That's not what the commandments are for. Okay, we think of things in a kind of mechanistic way. If I do this, then this will be the result. But that's not what it's about. That's not what the Shema, the voice of Yehovah, is. It's to move in sync with him, to move in rhythm with him, like a dance. The blessings are a natural consequence of interacting with the creation according to the Creator's instruction manual. Okay, think of it that way. Okay, he's created everything. Okay, he created the world in which we live. If we interact with that world according to the instructions that he gives us, things will go well. Just as a natural consequence, we're obeying his voice, we're moving in sync with him. The world needs to see men, women and children respond to life's controversies, offences, difficulties and inequities in accordance with Yehovah's pronounced judgments as to what thoughts, speech and deeds are appropriate and inappropriate, permissible and forbidden, and beneficial and detrimental in whatever situation they face. Okay, this is how we are to be a light to the world. We're to do these things and they're to see us doing them and they're to give glory to God. The world needs to see us do this, not in the hope of receiving material blessings by reason thereof, but simply because we intimately know and reverence Yehovah and have completely surrendered to him our wills, our minds and our emotions. The world needs to see a clear picture of the joy and blessings that flows from yielding to Yehovah's will, the way clay yields to the potter's hands. Okay, we're constantly given this image in Scripture of being clay in the potter's hands, and that is exactly how we are to respond. We're to allow his instructions to shape us, to mold us. The Hebrew concept of shema'ing is not a means to an end, it is an end to itself. We may obey Yehovah to reap the blessing it affords, but we cannot shema Yehovah for that reason. We shema Yehovah because he has revealed himself to us and has chosen us, and because now that we have tasted the wonderful love of God, it is absolutely unthinkable for us to do anything else. When we see who he is, when we have faith in him, of course we're going to do what's in his word. It's a natural response to it. It's not something that we force ourselves to do. It's not works that we force ourselves to do. John 10:25-27, Yeshua answered them, I told you, and ye believe not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. But ye believe not, because ye are not of my sheep. As I said unto you, my sheep hear my voice. Okay? Shema, my voice in Hebrew. And I know them, and they follow me. Okay? It's just natural. It comes naturally to his sheep. We shema, and asa. Yehovah's instructions for living, because those instructions are who we are and what we are created to be. There's no other reason that we do it. We don't do it out of religiosity, we do it because we recognize who he is. As dogs obey the voice of their master, just naturally we shema the voice of Yehovah. As dogs protect their territory and their master because it is in their nature to do so, new creations in Yehovah shema Yehovah's words. As dogs bark because it is in their nature to do so, new creations in Yehovah asa Yehovah's mitzvot and mishpatim, his commandments and his judgments, as we've got them in English. We'll have a look at those words in a little bit because they don't accurately reflect what the Hebrew is trying to get across. They're not commandments and judgments that are coming from a God that's sitting on the throne looking down to judge us. That's not how they are, okay? It's about relationship. It's not a matter of obedience, okay? Strange thing to say, but it's not a matter of obedience as we understand obedience. It's a matter of shema'ing his voice. It's a matter of a changed nature, okay? It's just your nature to do those things. It's a matter of covenant with Yehovah. You entered into covenant with him. It's a matter of relationship with him. Most importantly, it's a matter of relationship. It's why we were created. It's why he created us in the first place. He wanted a group of people who would, by their own free will, just look to him as their Father. And it's who we are. If we're Hebrews, okay, if we have crossed over, then it's who we are. If, however, our motive in following Yehovah's instructions ever changes and becomes to receive the blessings or cause the wonderful things he has promised to happen, if we begin to think we can, by obeying, manipulate Yehovah to get what we want from him, then we quickly find ourselves unable to complete the three things on the heels of which blessing follows. Okay, we cannot shema his voice if we're just doing it mechanistically to receive, to invoke a result. By thinking ahead to the blessings and focusing on them rather than on him, we have halted the dance and begun instead to do a solo dance to the music we made up in our head, or music piped in from another source. Okay, there's always another source. There's always the enemy that's trying to get us to do something that is opposite to Yehovah's commands. If we get thus distracted, we miss the whole point, and our obedience and observance becomes frustrating and futile. Okay, if you're thinking that obedience is frustrating and futile, you're not. You're not shemaing the voice of Yehovah. You are obeying the voice of Yehovah. They're two entirely different things. You need to get who he is before you can shema his voice. We grow to consider his precepts a burden, an inconvenience, a bother. We assign his value judgments to another generation, to another era, to a backward and unenlightened people. Okay, they were just for Israel while they were in the desert. They don't apply to us anymore. We look for another three-step plan to receive the blessings, and we flock to the latest charismatic faith preacher, Kingdom Now advocate, gifts of the Spirit declarant, apostolic prophetic leadership model, spiritual warfare doctrine, intercessory prayer group, praise and worship workshop, or some other means to an end religious fad attached to which we see any fragment of truth and which makes our flesh feel important for a while. That's what all of these do. Okay, they just appeal to the flesh. But you don't hear about Abraham going to a Kingdom Now anywhere within the Word. If it's not in the Word, it's complete garbage. It's just man-made rubbish. We cease to pursue after Yehovah as our lifeline. We pursue instead fellowship or revelation or ministry or worship or deliverance or intercession or some other movement, okay, and it's just completely moved away from the Word of God. Nothing to do with the Word of God, nothing to do with the God of the Bible. These things may sound good, they may sound like the Christian things, but they're not. All these things happen when we cease to reverence the words of his mouth. That's the source of truth. That's what's going to bring us deliverance, okay? As a consequence, we, like our ancestors, die in the desert, okay? We don't go into the promised land, much like pretty much all of the Israelites who came out of Egypt, apart from Joshua and Caleb did. We wind away our destiny and purpose in life while we discuss whose meetings are best, whose worship is better, whose prayers or prayer models are more spiritual, whose revelation is more exciting, whose ministry is more anointed, or whose message is more relevant for our little group. Okay, and focusing on those things, we lose the one who we should be focusing on. We lose the one who we should keep our eyes on. So, the good news, the gospel that comes with shemaing the voice of Yehovah. Okay, we hear a lot about the gospel. Believe in Jesus and you shall be saved. Completely disregarding everything else which is called good news in the Word of God, and completely missing what believing in Jesus actually is. So it is good news that if we who worship Yehovah could just get a hold of it and let it get a hold of us, more importantly, we would never be the same. I know that my life has not been the same since I started to realize these things. To assimilate this good news, however, we need to be at least willing to consider that the pathway of life laid out for us by Yehovah in Torah might just not be that burdensome pathway of works of the flesh, doomed to end in frustration, failure, judgment, and death that institutional Christianity has for so long insisted that it was. What an abomination to call God someone who would do these things, to speak this about the name of Yehovah, to say, to believe these things. It's horrible. It really is horrible. And yet this is what is taught from the pulpit all across the country. To receive and walk in the good news Moshe is about to deliver, one must at least be willing to consider that Yehovah just might not be the legalistic, sadistic, overbearing control freak of a bridegroom that the preachers and theologians of Christianity have so long portrayed him as being. To be able to rejoice with this good news, one must at least be willing to consider that, contrary to the assertions of Christian antinomians, those who are against the law, Yehovah actually loves his chosen bride to be passionately and wisely, and knows exactly what she is and is not capable of, and wants and will speak over her only what is good for her. Okay? People say that the law is too difficult to follow. My question to those people is always, which bit of the law is too difficult for you to follow? None of the law is too difficult to follow. But that is what is taught in Christianity, that the law is too difficult to follow. So Yehovah gave his people a law that was too difficult for them to follow, punished them for not following it, and then sent his son to set them free from it. It doesn't make any sense at all. Deuteronomy 7 verse 13 says, he will love you and bless you and multiply you, okay? And curse you with his law, put you under a curse. He will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of your herd and the young of your flock in the land which he swore to your forefathers to give you. You shall be blessed above all peoples. There will be no male or female barren among you or among your cattle. Yehovah will remove from you all sickness, and he will not put on you any of the harmful diseases of Egypt which you have known, but he will lay them on all who hate you. So it says here that he will remove all sickness, and he will not put the harmful diseases of Egypt on us. Okay, this isn't talking about physical sickness. Okay, that's not what the Hebrew says. Moshe does not say we will never catch a cold, neither does he promise we will never contract malaria, develop a cancerous growth, get an MRSA infection, or get AIDS. That's not what he's promising to his people. Okay? What Yehovah will do is take away, in Hebrew, serve, from us something he calls kol chalai. The Hebrew phrase kol chalai, usually translated in English Bibles as all sickness, actually means all affliction, calamity, and sadness. If these things come upon you, then he will help you get through it. He will give you the strength and the power to get through it. That's what he promises. The operative Hebrew verb in this promise is serve, meaning to peel back or off, or turn away something that is in place. Okay? That's what he would do to the affliction, the calamity, and the sadness that accompanies these things. The promise is not that those who embrace the Shema, and the Sa lifestyle will never get sick, suffer calamity, or be brokenhearted. We'll probably do each of these things. The promise is that when we do, he will never leave us alone to die in our misery, affliction, grief, and depression, but will instead stay engaged with us as we go through these things, and will deliver us and peel them off us in due time and manner. That's his promise. Okay. I miss so much in the English. Verse 17 says, if you should say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them. You shall well remember what Yehovah your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt. So they were about to cross into the land. There were giants in the land. There were difficult military engagements for them to face in the land. But they're told there, remember what Yehovah did to Pharaoh. Remember they defeated the most mighty army on all of the earth. The great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs and wonders, and the mighty hand and the outstretched arm by which Yehovah your God brought you out, so shall Yehovah your God do to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. Okay, Deuteronomy 8 starts. All the commandments that I am commanding you today, you shall be careful to do, to asah, that you may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which Yehovah swore to give to your forefathers. You shall remember all the way which Yehovah your God has led you in the wilderness these 40 years, that he may humble you, testing you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. Okay, these are the reasons for the trials in our life. They're to test us, they're to prove whether or not we'll keep his commandments. It's just like what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 2:9. He says, for to this end did I write, that I may know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things. Okay, it did not change. There's no difference in between what happens in the Old Testament, what happens in the New Testament. It's exactly the same. The Torah contains numerous mitzvot, commandments of memory. Okay, we're told to remember these things. As part of our new creation identities and destinies, we are called upon to aggressively remember and actively commemorate certain very important events, occurrences, experiences, and revelations. So these are the things that Yehovah told us we need to remember. He told us to remember the day in Egypt when we sprinkled the blood of the lamb on our doorposts and the angel of death passed over us. What did Yeshua do at Passover? He said, do these things in remembrance of me. Remember the Passover lamb and the blood that was sprinkled on the doorposts. He told us to remember the Shabbat and to cherish, treasure and carefully guard its holiness. Keep it holy, it says in the English. He told us to remember all the instructions of Torah every time we look at our tzitzit. He told us to remember that we were once slaves in Egypt, but have been brought forth from bondage by his mighty hand and his outstretched arm. And he told us to remember the deliverance he brought for us and how he crushed our enemies at the sea of reeds. Okay, so we're told multiple times that you are to remember specific things. You're to bring these things to mind because they will help you in your walk of faith. Verse 3 says, he humbled you and let you be hungry and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor your fathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of Yehovah. Your clothing did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus you are to know in your heart that Yehovah your God was disciplining you, just as a man disciplines his son. Just as we go through trials in our life, sometimes Yehovah is disciplining us to bring these things to mind. Why did Yehovah lead them about in the wilderness? Why did he not save them all from the heat, thirst, fear, drama and dying of the last 40 years and just take them directly from the land of Goshen to the land of the patriarchs? Charlie said if he wanted to, he could have just taken them on flying carpets, feeding them grapes all of the way. Why didn't he do that? Moshe tells us Yehovah had 4 very good reasons for taking them through the hot, dry wilderness. Okay, think of the trials and the tribulations in your own life. Yehovah's got the same reasons for taking you through them. To humble them, lest they forgot where they would be without him. To test them. To let them prove what was in their heart, whether they would shamar his instructions or despise and reject them. And to teach them that man cannot truly live by eating bread alone, but from the words that proceed from Yehovah's mouth. And that is the exact same thing that he's teaching us now as we walk through our wildernesses. Verse 6 says, therefore you shall keep the commandments of Yehovah your God, to walk in his ways and to fear them. Again, keep shamar, to treasure, to guard, to protect over the commandments, to reverence the commandments. For Yahuwah your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs flowing forth in valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. Now these things here, these 7 things that I mentioned, the wheat, the barley, the vines, fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil and honey, even in secular society, these things are thought of as superfoods, or at least wheat in its original form is a superfood. A land where you will eat food without scarcity, in which you will not lack anything, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. When you have eaten and are satisfied, you shall bless Yahuwah your God for the good land which he has given you. Okay, the concept of saying grace before a meal does not exist anywhere in Scripture. It tells us that we are to thank God after we have eaten and we're satisfied, something that we often forget to do. So sometimes we pray before the meal just so that we remember to do it. But this is the biblical instruction. This is how we are to do it. Verse 11 says, beware that you do not forget Yahuwah your God by not keeping his commandments and his ordinances and his statutes which I am commanding you today. It says that we are forgetting Yahuwah by not keeping his commandments. Okay, and it says in Hosea that when the house of Israel is scattered amongst all the nations, they will forget Yahuwah, they'll forget who their God is. These are the things that we're to keep: his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes. Now, if we have a look at those words in the Hebrew a little bit closer, we get a better understanding of exactly what Yahuwah is saying to us. Okay, the mitzvot, okay, the commandments. First kind of instruction that Yahuwah is incorporated into our betrothal covenant is mitzvot, often called commandments in English translations. The Hebrew term mitzvot, singular mitzvah, literally refers to acts through which Yahuwah calls us to join ourselves to him and to act like an apprentice, do whatever we see him doing. The mitzvot of Torah are pure and simple. They tell us what Yahuwah is doing so that we can just copy him, like a child would copy his father. Mitzvot draw us close to him. They bring us under his close personal tutelage, and they teach us to know how to co-create with him. Okay, these aren't things that are bondage, they're not things that could ever be done away with. They are the nature of Yahuwah. Mishpatim, okay, these are the judgments. Okay, this is what we have translated as judgments. The second kind of life instruction the covenant contains is mishpatim, often called judgments in English Bibles. That sounds incredibly cold. Yahuwah's mishpatim consist of responses to specific circumstances and controversies based upon the bridegroom's, Yahuwah's perspective of right and wrong rather than our own. Sometimes we can have a mixed up morality. We can have a morality that comes from the world, but his judgments are how he sees things. Okay. The Mishpatim of Torah challenge us to actually begin to understand and think the way Yahuwah thinks. Okay? And it can be a challenge sometimes. It can be very different to the way that we see the world, because we have an enemy who's out there to deceive us. Plain and simple, Mishpatim, or what Messiah would do. And you get a response, what would Jesus do? Okay, the answer would be his Mishpatim. Of course, all of the Torah, but this is the way that he sees the world. Mishpatim are the tools by which Yahuwah undertakes to teach us to love what he loves, to hate what he hates, and to prioritize what he prioritizes. Obviously, these are very important things that could never fade away. The Mishpatim of Torah train us in the delicate process of applying his perfect blend of wisdom and compassion to people and situations, and to do so without getting offended at him when his instructions do not seem fair or just from our limited and imperfect human perspective. The Mishpatim sections of Torah thereby test the extent to which we reverence Yahuwah. They cause our wills to line up with his. They shift the reasoning processes of our minds away from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where we decide right and wrong for ourselves, to the tree of life. Okay, it says in Scripture that the Torah is the tree of life. Okay? They bring our flesh-dominated emotions under his spiritual authority. The Chukim. Okay, we went into this in greater detail a few Torah portions ago. The third kind of instructions for living Yehovah given us in his Torah are his Chukim, often called ordinances or statutes. Chukim are literally engravings. That would be a more literal translation. Okay, we're to have the law written on our hearts, and his Chukim are engravings. They're those things which we are just instructed to do, whether or not they make sense to us or make us feel close to him or not. Okay, an example in the Torah of something that is a chukah, one of the chukim, is the red heifer sacrifice. Okay, it's said to be the one thing that Solomon couldn't get his head around. Okay, he didn't understand why it needed to be done, he just did it. The Chukim of Torah test the extent to which we trust Yehovah. Okay, we're going to do things that he tells us to do, even though we might not understand why he tells us to do them. Then Moshe tells us of the dire consequences that will flow into our lives and communities if we refuse to accept, nurture and flow in the gift of his Torah. Okay, you just have to look at the world around us to see what those dire consequences are. It's not a very nice place. Matthew 7:24 to 27. I'm not going to read out all of the curses that are pronounced, but this is Yeshua's words. Okay, he kind of sums up what's said about these blessings and curses. It says, therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it. And no one's going to be calling Yeshua a legalist, and yet if you say there are blessings and curses for obeying the instructions of God, people will call you a legalist. Okay, Deuteronomy 9 says, Hear, O Israel, you're crossing Jordan today to go in, dispossess nations greater and mightier than you, great cities fortified to heaven, a people great and tall, the sons of the Anakim, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the sons of Anak? Know therefore today the Yehovah your God, who is crossing over before you as a consuming fire. He will destroy them, and he will subdue them before you, so that you may drive them out and destroy them quickly, as Yehovah has spoken to you. Do not say in your heart, when Yehovah your God has driven them out before you, because of my righteousness Yehovah has brought me in to possess this land. But it is because of the wickedness of the nations that Yehovah is dispossessing them before you. Scripture tells us that the land will vomit out its inhabitants because it's a holy land. The Anakim are descended from Ham, who was one of Noah's sons, and they are the giants in the land. Remember we were talking about the Nephilim the other day.
Would you say that relates to Anunnaki?
No.
Not so.
It is not for your righteousness or for the uprightness of your heart that you are going to possess their land, but it is because of the wickedness of these nations that Yehovah, your God, is driving them out before you. Okay, again, it's part of these blessings and curses of living according to the instructions of God. In order to confirm the oath which Yehovah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, know then that it is not because of your righteousness that Yehovah your God is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stubborn people. Remember, do not forget how you provoked Yehovah your God to wrath in the wilderness. And what he's going to go through here is the things that Israel did wrong. I'm just going to read through Deuteronomy 9 to the end, okay, because it's important that we recognize this. Remember, do not forget how you provoked Yahweh your God to wrath in the wilderness. From the day that you left the land of Egypt until you arrived at this place, you have been rebellious against Yahweh. Even at Horeb you provoked Yahweh to wrath, and Yahweh was so angry with you that he would have destroyed you. When I went up to the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant which Yahweh had made with you, then I remained on the mountain 40 days and nights. I neither ate bread nor drank water. Yahweh gave me 2 tablets of stone written by the finger of God, and on them were all the words which Yahweh had spoken with you at the mountain from the midst of the fire on the day of the assembly. It came about at the end of 40 days and nights that Yahweh gave me the 2 tablets of stone, tablets of the covenant. Then Yahweh said to me, "Arise, go down from here quickly, for your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned aside from the way that I commanded them. They have made a molten image for themselves." Yahweh spoke further to me, saying, "I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stubborn people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under heaven, and I will make of you a nation mightier and greater than they." So I turned and came down from the mountain, while the mountain was burning with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I saw that you had indeed sinned against Yahweh your God. You had made for yourselves a molten calf, and had quickly turned aside from the way which Yahweh commanded you. I took hold of the 2 tablets and threw them from my hands and smashed them before your eyes. I fell down before Yahweh as the first 40 days and nights. I neither ate bread nor drank water because of all your sin which you had committed in doing what was evil in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger. But I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure with which Yahweh was wrathful against you in order to destroy you. But Yahweh listened to me that time also. Yahweh was angry enough with Aaron to destroy him. So I also prayed for Aaron at the same time. I took your sinful thing, the calf you had made, and burned it with fire, and crushed it, grinding it very small until it was fine as dust. And I threw its dust into the brook. It came down from the mountain. Again, at Taberah and at Massa and at Kibroth Hattaavah, you provoked Yahweh to wrath. When Yahweh sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, "Go up and possess the land which I have given you," and you rebelled against the command of Yahweh your God, and you neither believed him nor listened to his voice. You have been rebellious against Yahweh from the day that I knew you. So I fell down before Yahweh the 40 days and nights, and I did, because Yahweh had said he would destroy you. I prayed to Yahweh and said, "O Lord God, do not destroy your people, even your inheritance, whom you've redeemed through your greatness, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do not look at the stubbornness of this people or at the wickedness of their sin. Otherwise the land from which you brought us may say, because Yahweh was not able to bring them into the land which he had promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. Yet they are your people, even your inheritance, whom you have brought out by your great power and your outstretched arm." Now these things, they're important for us to kind of get our heads around, because these were mistakes that these people made, and this is what Paul says. He says, "Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore, let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall." Okay? Think that you stand, take heed to these things that happened to the Israelites, because if you make the same mistakes as them, then you will fall, just as they did. You will not make it into the promised land. Okay, skipping forward to Deuteronomy 10. 12 and 13, it says, Now Israel, what does Yehovah your God require from you but to fear Yehovah your God, to walk in all his ways and to love him and serve Yehovah your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to keep Yehovah's commandments and his statutes, which I am commanding you today for your good. Again, keep doesn't mean to do his commandments and statutes. Keep means to reverence his commandments and statutes. Okay, that's what we're to do. It's the exact opposite of what has actually been done in Christianity. Told time and time again, keep the commandments, keep the commandments, keep the commandments, treasure them, guard them, revere them. What does Christianity say? Commandments have been done away with. Absolute opposite of it. John 14:21. Yeshua says this, okay, again he's encapsulating what we see in Torah. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. Okay? Yeshua gave the commandments to Moshe. Yeshua is God. God's commandments. It's all one and the same. We don't say Yeshua said to do these things and Yehovah said to do something different. Yeshua, Yehovah, they're one and the same. For Yehovah your God is the God of gods, and Yehovah of lords, or should be, and the Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, and the awesome God who does not show partiality or take a bribe. He executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and shows his love for the alien by giving him food and clothing. To show your love for the alien, for you were, so show your love for the alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. And I've got a picture here of Yeshua washing the feet of his disciples. And we think this is an amazing thing, that God of heaven came down and washed the feet of the disciples. But it wasn't an amazing thing to God. It's just who he is. Okay. Yehovah wants us to know that he loves us passionately. He loves us both individually and corporately. But he does not want us to act condescendingly, arrogantly, or haughtily toward other peoples of the world. That's not what we're commanded to do. You see people go out to rallies and protesting against gay people. It's not anything to do with what the God of Scripture tells us to do. Yehovah's word to Abraham was that in his seed all the nations of the world will be blessed. We're supposed to bless the people around us, not condemn them. All nations, people, and ethnic groups are to be blessed by us. They're not to be condemned, not criticised, not judged, not scorned, marginalised, or humiliated, not hated, avoided, or viewed as inferiors. Okay? They're to be blessed by us. Our mission is to bring blessing to all people whom Yehovah brings within our sphere of influence, and to teach all peoples what a glorious difference wisdom and love and joy and peace that flows from intimate fellowship with the Creator can make in the world. That's what we're to demonstrate to them. That's how we're to show Yehovah to them. That's how they are to reverence his name, through saying us. That's how we're to be a light to the Gentiles. John 5:19 says, Then answered Yeshua and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, so also doeth the Son likewise. And that is the attitude that we're to have. Whatever the Father does, we're to do. Okay? It's what, when Yeshua was washing the feet of the disciples, he wasn't doing something that he thought would be cool. Oh, everyone will like this, or this will be written about. He's just doing it as the Father does. Yeshua did not engage in ministry for ministry's sake. He did not try to disciple every Israelite, much less human beings at random. He did not confront every hypocrite he encountered. He did not raise from the dead every person who died. He did not lay his hands on and heal every sick person he encountered. Why? Because Yeshua was teaching us, modeling for us what it truly means to do only those things Yehovah specifically allocates to us the responsibility to do. Okay, we can go out. Speaking to Joseph the other week about going out and preaching to people. Okay, if we're not commanded directly by Yehovah to do that, to go out and do street preaching, then we're just doing it in our flesh, basically. He was teaching us that there is a difference between being a do-gooder or social reformer and loving Yahuwah or Elohim. They are two distinctly different things. We don't just do what we think is good, okay? We do what he tells us to do because we know that that is right. We are not to do good according to our or society's definition of good. We are to do only what Yahuwah tells us to do. 2 Corinthians 3:18 says this, "But we all, with open face beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord." Okay, we're conformed to the image of his Son. He did what he saw him doing. Deuteronomy 10:21 says, "Here's your praise and here's your God, who has done these great and awesome things for you, which your eyes have seen." Okay, to reverence him, we're to copy him because we've seen him doing these things. Okay, we've seen him looking after the alien and the stranger. That's why we do it. He wants us to know him and to understand and appreciate his revealed pattern of righteousness, the Torah as taught by Moshe and lived out by Yeshua. Okay, this is everything. This is our life. This is the pattern to which we are to be conformed to. It's been given to us from the beginning. He wants us, because we know and understand him, to voluntarily yield our wills, minds, our emotions, our words and our actions to him, and thereby to allow him to transform our lives to conform to that pattern. Okay, don't just decide this is a good thing to do, so I'm going to go and do this. God away like that. We follow his instructions and we conform to his pattern. What Yahuwah really wants from us is not about works. What our covenant partner really wants from us is not about ministry. It is instead about intimate communion. It is about relationship. Okay? What he wants is our complete surrender to him. He doesn't want anything else. He doesn't want us to come up with our own version of righteousness. He just wants that. He just wants our surrender and our willingness to do his will and not ours. Deuteronomy 11 verse 1 says, "You shall therefore love Yahuwah your God and always keep Shema, guard, protect, treasure, his charge, his statutes, his ordinances and his commandments." Okay, so note the linkage here that Moshe makes between loving Yahuwah. It can't be separated from keeping his instructions for living. That's how we love him. If you do not Shema Yahuwah's words of instructions as to how life should be lived, Moshe implies that you do not really love him. You may think that you do. You might say, profess with your lips that you love him, but your hearts are far from him. If you are finding it hard to walk with Yahuwah, walk out his will for your life and continually do only what you see him doing, consider that it may just be for the reason that you're having this difficulty is probably because you still have one or more of the following problems. Okay? You don't know him very well. Okay? You haven't read the scriptures. You don't get to know who Yahuwah is. Okay? You still do not like him very much. Maybe you've read the scriptures and you've read in them things that you don't like. You don't like Yahuwah. Okay? You still do not trust him to have your best interest in mind at all times. I think that's probably the most difficult one for us to get our heads around. That no matter what is happening to us, and no matter what is happening in the flesh, we can trust him to have our best interests at heart. Deuteronomy 11 in verse 8 it says, "You shall therefore keep every commandment which I am commanding you today, so that you may be strong and go in to possess the land into which you are about to cross to possess it, so that you may prolong your days on the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers to give them and to their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey." This is the land that we're going to inherit when Yeshua comes back and takes us into the land. For the land into which you are entering to possess it is not like the land of Egypt from which you came, where you used to sow your seed and water it with your foot like a vegetable garden. But the land into which you are about to cross, to possess it, a land of hills and valleys, drinks waters from the rains of heaven, a land for which Yehovah your God cares. The eyes of Yehovah your God are always on it, from the beginning even to the end of the year. It shall come about if you listen obediently to my commandments, which I am commanding you today, to love Yehovah your God and to serve him with all your heart and all your soul, that he will give the rain for your land in its season, the early and the late rain, that you may gather in your grain and your new wine and your oil. So what he's saying is, look, you're entirely dependent on me. This is the land that I've chosen for you to go and live in, but it's entirely dependent on me. It's entirely dependent on me sending rain. If I don't send rain, your crops won't grow. He will give you grass in your fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. Beware that your hearts are not deceived, and that you do not turn away and serve other gods to worship them. Or the anger of Yehovah will be kindled against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that there will be no rain, and the ground will not yield its fruit, and you will perish quickly from the good land which Yehovah is giving you. Okay, so in a way, the best land that they could inherit if they obey the voice of Yehovah. But if they don't, the worst land that they could inherit, because they are reliant entirely on Yehovah for their crops. So Moshe wants us to understand that Israel has a natural irrigation system, a series of mountains which trap rainfall and valleys that fall into the lower elevations. And that is, it is also a land of inhabitants which are totally dependent upon rain. If it rains in Israel in the spring and in the autumn, there will be abundance. But because there is no Nile Delta, like in Egypt where they left, nor any annual alluvial flood, such in Israel as occurs in Egypt, if there is a period of drought in either the spring or in the autumn, what could be fertile hillsides will quickly become a wasteland. Okay, it's a good metaphor for our lives as well. If we're keeping the commandments of Yehovah, okay, we can have abundance in our lives, but if we disregard them, our lives quickly become a wasteland. In Israel, there is a dependence upon Yehovah unmatched anywhere in Egypt. The rainfall and everything else in Israel is subject to Yehovah's direct supervision in every detail. The purpose of being in the land of Israel is to live in a state of closeness with the Almighty, understanding that in everything we do in this world, we rely on Him. Our efforts can only succeed if they align with His will, as expressed to us through His Torah. This is a quote from the Rambam. This is what he says about this passage in Torah. It says, realize that this new land is not like the land of Egypt that can be irrigated with the water channels and reservoirs like a garden of vegetables, but it rather is a land of hills and valleys that gets its water from the rainfall and in no other way. It therefore always requires God's sustaining hand to provide it with rain, for it is a very arid land that needs rainfall all of the year. If you abrogate the will of God so that He will not sustain it with desirable rains, then it becomes a poor land. Indeed, it can neither be planted nor cultivated, and no crops should grow upon its slopes. Now, in Israel today, they've gone in with loads of equipment, and they've made the land fertile by the will of man. And they say that this is the promised blessing, where the land will become fertile and will become abundant. That's not at all the promised blessing. That's not what Scripture says will happen. It says that Jehovah will make the land fertile in much the same way as is described in the Torah here. Deuteronomy 10:18 says, you shall therefore impress these words of mine, 11:18, sorry. You shall therefore impress these words of mine on your heart and on your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. What you see is the Jews going around with the tefillin on their foreheads and bound on their hands. That's not at all what this is talking about. Okay, we see in Proverbs 3, verse 3, it says, do not let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on on the tablet of your heart. Okay, these are not literal things. Okay, to write them on our hearts will kill us. Okay, we can't bind concepts around our neck. Okay, and in much the same way, when it says bind them as a sign on your hand, it's not talking about in a literal way. It's your hand is what you do. Okay, the frontals on your forehead is how you think. Okay, saying do and think according to my commands. Jeremiah 3, verse 2-3 says, lift up your eyes to the bare heights and see where you have not been violated by the roads you have sat for them like an Arab in the desert, and you have polluted land with your harlotry and your wickedness. Therefore the showers have been withheld, and there has been no spring rain. Let you had a harlot's forehead, you refuse to be ashamed. Okay, so we see that the forehead is how you think. Okay, harlot's forehead, you were thinking in the way that a harlot thinks. Verse 19 says, you shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Again, this isn't talking about literally inscribing them. Okay, I don't think that it's a bad thing to do, to put a mezuzah as a statement of intent on the doorpost, but that's not what it's saying. It's saying, let this be the way that your household is governed. Verse 21 says, so that your days and the days of your sons may be multiplied on the land which Jehovah swore to your fathers to give them, as long as the heavens remain above the earth. Moshe then concludes the Parsha, much as he began it. I won't read it, but he will tell us once again how absolutely amazing our future will be if we will do these things. Shema, the life instructions he's giving us, teach them faithfully to our children, build our lives upon those instructions, talk about those instructions everywhere we go and whatever we are doing. Love Jehovah, our God, walk in all Jehovah's ways. That's it, hold fast to Jehovah. Okay, these are the things in which we will find a blessing. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show a video. Some of you know Rabbi Foreman. Okay, this is the Parsha to that he's done for this week. I think that it's good. That it's worth.
Welcome to Parsha Eikev. This week's Parsha contains Moshe's summary of what it is that God asks of us. In just a sentence or two, Moshe summarizes everything. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mimcha, Moshe says. What is it anyway that God asks of you, ki'im, except for? And then Moshe gives a whole list of things: to love God, to fear Him, to serve God, to walk in His ways. What I want to look at with you today is the fact that later on, centuries later, we have a prophet who tries to do this exact same thing, boil down for you what it is that God wants in just a few words. And not only does that prophet try to do exactly the same thing, he actually sort of quotes the opening words of Moshe. The prophet I'm thinking of is the prophet Micah. And Micah's statement begins, Ma Hashem doresh mimcha, what is it God seeks of you anyway? Ki'im, except for, ... Then he gives a list, but the list is radically different than the list that Moshe gives you, leading to some interesting questions. Was that prophet arguing with Moshe? He's clearly aware of what Moshe says. How does he mean for us to understand how his words jive with Moshe's words? Now that's a very interesting question, one that I hope to address in an epilogue to this one. But in this video, I want to focus with you on Micah's words. How is it that Micah summarizes all of our obligations in just a few words? Here's what Micah says. Higid lecha adam matov, it is told to you, O man, what it is that's good, Uma Hashem doresh mimcha, and what it is that God seeks of you. It really boils down to this, Ki'im asot mishpat, it is just doing justice, Va'avad chesed, loving kindness, and walking modestly with the Lord your God. So Micah boils it down to three things here. And here's the question I want to ask you. How do these three things relate to each other? Are these three separate things, or are they connected things? And when you put these three together, does it create some sort of overall picture? Is there a structure here that emerges? And what would that structure look like? So I want to suggest to you that there is a structure. The best metaphor I can use for that structure is a staircase. And to give you a kind of vivid idea of what I mean by this, I want to go back a couple sentences to what it is that the prophet Micah says just before this, because if you look carefully there, you're going to find another staircase, a staircase that's the mirror image, the evil twin of this one, as it were. B'meh akadem Hashem, with what shall I approach God? Ikaf lelokei marom. How shall I show my submission to the Lord who is most high? Ha'akadmenu ba'olot. Shall I offer offerings to him? Ba'agalim b'nei shana. Maybe with fine offerings, calves that are just a year old. Hayirtzeh Hashem ba'alfei elim. Would God perhaps be appeased with 1,000 rams? Birevavot nachlei shemen. 10,000 rivers of oil. Ha'eten b'chori pishi. Shall I perhaps sacrifice my firstborn to him? Pri bitni chatas nafshi. Shall I atone for whatever sins I might have by killing my children, handing them back to God? Now, the prophet's obviously being sarcastic here. He's not advocating any of this. But you can see that he's developing a kind of staircase for you. The first level on the staircase is you might think you would offer offerings, but then once you think you offer offerings, you'd really have to offer the best offerings. You'd have to offer agalim b'nei shana, fine calves, just a year old. And then you'd think maybe 1,000 offerings would be better than that. Maybe 10,000 rivers of oil. And if that weren't good enough, you'd think maybe you'd make the supreme sacrifice. You'd give your firstborn. Maybe you'd give all your kids to God. There's a dangerous staircase here. At the top of the staircase is a cliff. Don't go over that cliff, Micha's saying. It's not what I want you to do. And then he offers you an alternative staircase, an alternative vision of what it means to be a good person. Being a good person doesn't mean finding all sorts of beyond the letter of the law possibilities in how to serve God, offering extra offerings, even more offerings, culminating in offering the hardest thing to offer. But before you know it, you're sacrificing your kids. He's giving you an alternative vision of what goodness is. 3 levels that build upon each other. Level 1, asot mishpat, be just, be fair. Decency begins with fairness. But it doesn't end with fairness. Fairness is just the ground level. If all you can say about yourself is that you're a fair person, you're a just person, that doesn't still make you a good person. Right? If I'm fair, so it's a level playing field. So if you're poor, it's not my fault that you're poor. Lift yourself up by your bootstraps. And what about basic garden variety neighborliness? Oh, I see, you need to borrow my lawnmower. Well, what'd you do for me lately? Fairness isn't the only thing that goodness consists of. On top of fairness rides kindness. And that's the next thing Micha says. Avad chesed, you should love kindness. It should be a part of your daily regimen. Kindness without justice is mush. Justice without kindness is hard and steely-edged. Those are only the first 2 steps. There's a 3rd step on top of that. So you say, well, what do you mean a 3rd step? I mean, I'm a decent person if I'm fair and kind. What more could you ask of me? Decency actually requires a 3rd thing. A just person, a kind person, will also want to extend himself towards God. He will want to walk with God. You must walk with God with humility. You must walk with him modestly. Because what if you do not? What if you walk with God arrogantly? Then what? It will get in the way of you being a decent person. Because you can be the fairest guy in the world and the kindest guy in the world. But if you walk with God arrogantly, you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up mistreating people despite your fairness and despite your kindness. Here's why. When you walk with God, you're going to realize that not everybody walks with God the same way you walk with God. They walk with God a little differently. How are you going to deal with that? Well, let's say you deal with it arrogantly. What do you say? You know why they walk with God that way? Because they're idiots, that's why. Because they don't care about the truth. The truth is so obvious. I see the truth. All my friends see the truth. Why can't that idiot see the truth? Because he doesn't want to see the truth. Because he's not sincere. Because he's a charlatan. If you walk with God arrogantly, everybody's the other. And once that happens, your kindness and your fairness just doesn't matter anymore. Kindness and fairness, that's for people like us, not for the idiots out there. Micha, in a way, is giving you a vision of tolerance. If you walk humbly with God, I have the humility to understand that I do it this way, but you are a sincere seeker of God, and you do it that way. And that changes everything. I can still be fair to you. I can still be kind to you, because I walk with humility with God. This is a beginning. There is much more to look at here. I invite you to join me in an audio epilogue. Let's continue the discussion.